Good morning, everybody. Uh, nice to be here. We have some work to do, some talk to do in this presentation. So let's go fast because the time is running and I get some coffee abstinence after a while. So first thing I would like to spend, I need to spend some word about the event. It's thanks to everybody for organizing this such great event. Thanks to Mariana for inviting me, Paulius, Vicentas, and everybody else from the committee that I haven't not mentioned. This is by far, in my opinion, one of the best events of the year. Thank you. Oh, thank you. We burned the first 5 minutes, so let's go deep into this presentation. This presentation, I call it the hot water presentation. This doesn't mean that some water will come out from the screen, but it means that we will say a lot. I will say a lot of things that are obvious. Okay. Things that you already know about, and a lot of things that are pretty much we know, but we need to implement. It's not only my work. It comes from also my colleague Marco. Many of you know. We work together in designing networks and ISP with more than 60 projects running and networks that are still running nowadays. I am Alfredo Giordano. This is my background. I would like to focus on the background because I would like to mention the fact that, as you can see, I'm an engineer. So I started as an engineer, not as a businessman, which are two totally different things. So when you start your own business as an engineer, you have to learn actually to become a businessman. You have to learn to actually see your business from a different perspective that is not only technical. And this is the work. This is something we need to talk about today. Okay. Some words about the company. We are a company that is basically dedicated to offering network services to our customer. We do only tailor-made services. We are focused on Europe, a little bit in Latin America, and that's pretty much it. But let's go deep dive into the presentation. So, as I told you, we'll say a lot of things that are obvious about network architecture, security framework, traffic management, monitoring and maintenance, peering and transit, but most of it customer experience and impact on network costs. That will be our conclusion about wrapping everything together. Let's start to talk about tiring of an ISP. Okay, so when you go to a restaurant and you look at a menu, okay, you will see that there are like allergens, like this is as well, this is lactose, etc. So we'll try to keep this format in the presentation. No? So we have these icons over here. Does this work? Yes. So local, regional, global. Why do we need to do that? Because there are certain things that are more or less important for an ISP depending on the target, on the geographical area that is actually trying to approach. So a local operator in a city, in a province, or in a limited area, is that very important for that local operator, global peering and stuff like that? Probably it's less important than for a global that operates worldwide. What about a regional operator? A regional operator covers nationwide and multi-regional area, owns the backbone, and provides aggregation for other ISP. For a regional operator, how much important is an IXP, an exchange point? From that perspective, it's much more important than probably for a global. And we know that. How many times you send your traffic to a tier 1 and that traffic gets exchanged in Frankfurt, while the AS, it's actually local here in Lithuania? That happens also time, because global have a different perspective than regional. So the idea is to approach every network designing and business designing element according to these three. Okay, let's go and start for the network architecture. Any questions so far? If you want to interrupt me anytime, feel free to do that. We are totally interactive. Don't really be afraid of. So redundancy and resilience. Of course, this is, as I told you, this is obvious. If you guys are really technical guys, look at the cell phone, don't look at the slides. So redundancy and resilience, building multiple paths between critical nodes, eliminate single point of failure, of course. Diverse routing protocols, BGP, OSPF, OSPF v3, segment routing v6, something to look at. Maintain backup connection to upstream providers, peering and partners, always deploy IPv6 and IPv4 across your global infrastructure. To whom is important? It's important, it's the basis, the foundation, is what you are building and provide the infrastructure that will provide services to your customers. So it's important for all tiers of ISP. Build infrastructure with scale in mind. Never limit yourself by the design. Design network with grow in mind. So if you are designing a network, think about that network has to grow. Guys, let's learn from the big guys. You know what happens when you ask for a cross connect to a Google or Facebook, or is anybody from Google or Facebook here, wherever? They will tell you to connect that cross connect with a lag, so with a link aggregation, even if it is only one link. Why? Because then they can add more capacity without interrupting the service. That is what I mean when you have to design thinking about the scale in mind. Geographic distribution, your network equipment across multiple locations to reduce latency and improve faulty tolerance. Of course, you have to think about a site that can be hit by a disaster, and that does not need to impact your business. We are talking about making the business survive. So if there is a disaster on that site, your business should be able to survive. This is the way to design a network. Security. Security is important for everybody, of course. Multi-layer defense, deploy DDoS performance intrusion and detection system with traffic and filtering. Is that really fundamental for a local ISP? A local ISP provides probably access to businesses that are local and concentrated, and as an upstream. So it's much more important for a local ISP to choose wisely the upstream than to look about a DDoS solution. Because if the upstream gets hit by a DDoS, there is very small, very little thing that you can do about that. Security audits. So conducts or penetration testing and vulnerability assessment. Keep all the network equipment, firmware, and software updated with security patches. This is very important. There is a sentence from previous presentation of Damien that hit me. So include the workflow in your business process. That's something you should take care of. And this is important for all the tiers of ISP. Complete and updated technical documentation. Your asset is not the device. Your asset is not the POP that is linked to another POP. Your asset is the system, and the system is worth nothing if it is not documented. So build your network as you should deliver this network, give this network to somebody else tomorrow. This somebody else needs to open the book and see everything that is done, is built in your network. That doesn't destroy your value, that increases your value. It's not that you only know about that and so it must be a very kept secret. It's something that you need to have documented. Your business will increase the value if you do that. Traffic management, quality of service, of course, it's fundamental, but more than quality of service, I'd say that we need to focus on quality of experience. So the perception of the service from the customer. One of the most difficult things that as an engineer we have to do is to actually accept the fact that something is either not working or perceived as not working because of somebody else's fault. Let's say that Google has a problem with our upstream and the customer perceives our service as not working because of somebody else. The customer perception is what counts in. The customer perception is what makes your service to be preferred over another one. So, yes, we need to take in account customer experience, and we need to take in account of overcoming somebody else's fault in order to improve customer experience. Not easy to do? Yes. That becomes the last part, load balancing. Load balancing, important for regional and global, less important for local. Why? Because local ISP doesn't really have not so much to load balance. So distribute traffic across multiple paths and server optimize performance and prevent congestion using local and global strategies. Monitoring. When you design an ISP, when you build the network with monitoring in mind. Knowing what happens in the network in every moment, it empowers you to provide a better service. If you don't know or if you need to waste time in looking at what is happening into a network, you already have a degree, a condition that makes you lose time and money. Proactive maintenance. Don't wait for devices to break up. So if you have optics and you see that an optic has increased its temperature without any reason, probably that optic you need to change before it breaks up. If you have a router that fans are spinning up too much, probably you have to look into dust. There are things that we can do as a proactive, and we don't need to miss them. Of course, monitor the quality of the traffic, like something like about the ASPAT. This is important especially for regional and global. So, and it's directly tied to the next slide. We need to know what traffic our customer do in order to approach our design for the upstream. If our customers are mainly residential, probably we need to approach traffic from CDNs. Probably we need to approach traffic from content provider that provide something to as consumer. If our traffic is mostly business, we need to take in account to connect to have a good path to hosting provider, to cloud provider, etc. And this is why I was talking about the previous slide, strategic peering. So establish peering relationship with content delivery networks and other ISP to reduce transit costs. There are two question marks, not always true. It's not always true, okay? Now it becomes, there is a little bit of a movement in this side, no? IXP want to be ISP, ISP want to be IXP, etc. We did all this remote peering and all this LAN extension provided by IXP as well. Maintain relationship with multiple upstream providers. Hey, upstream providers. One is not enough. Two is okay. Three is too much. You don't need to really have a transit with every single tier one. It's inefficient. It doesn't really increase your quality. What you need to have is resiliency, and what you need to do is to wisely choose your upstreams. Private network interconnection, when your traffic becomes at a level that the network interconnection that justifies connecting directly to an AS that is pushing traffic to your customers, then it justifies reaching that data center and make a private interconnection with that provider. Customer experience. This is the core of the business, the customer experience. If the customer is happy, it will choose you whatever cost you have. Quality around the customer is the leader of the business. So focus on the quality of the experience for the customer. How do you actually reach that? Make service level agreement. So define clear performance metric, uptime, and implement customer portal system for service monitoring and support ticket management. The customer needs to know that there is somebody looking at its service. The customer needs to know what is happening on his service. Okay, so transparency builds trust. That's very important. Rapid issue resolution. Try to avoid situations that are not under your control. Because even if you are proactive, even if you do maintenance, and even if you do everything, but the customer is connected with a single fiber that is not under your control, if that fiber is cut, there is very little you can do. And this is a situation you need to avoid. So if your business is providing access, then, and you are directed to business that are critical, provide packages that include backup forcefully. It's not an option. You need a backup. We don't need it. I don't care. We only sell it with backup. That's what we do normally. Because the customer doesn't know what he needs. You do. Evaluating customer satisfaction is another important thing. If a customer knows that he's satisfied, then he will recommend to other customers. Okay. A lot of obvious things. As I told you, this is a hot water presentation, but things we know, some of them we do, some of them we don't. Okay. Let's try to wrap this up from a business point of view. And when I say business, I talk about business plan. I talk about money. I talk about CapEx, OpEx, etc. So how do we build an ISP? How do we actually work in making a business that will develop and go further? many of these implications, many of these things that we have seen have direct implication in costs. This cost needs to be addressed at the business plan level, not at eventuality level. Let's see what I mean. So let's talk about CapEx. First of all, equipment lifecycle management. Network equipment typically requires replacement every 3-5 years. That is, even if you are not growing, even if you are stuck with the same customer, you still will have to change probably your equipment within 4 years. Why? Because of the technological advance. Because the business grows, because the bandwidth grows, because the latency improves, because the energy reduces, the energy consumption reduces. So changing the equipment, it's cheaper than not changing it. And sometimes we don't go change the equipment just because we are lazy, but changing that equipment will actually save money in power. This has to be addressed at business plan level. So when you build your business plan, you include the fact that every 4 years you have to change the equipment. Capacity expansion, same thing. You need to expand the capacity. It's not something that happens on demand. It's something that you need to address at the business plan level, because sooner or later, the bandwidth of your customers will double. And hopefully, your customer base will grow. So you need to plan for expansion. And that expansion, considering the delivery time in that expansion, never reach the saturated point that the customer perceives that your service is saturated and then it's released and it works much better. That's very important point. Technology migration, major investment sometimes are required when implementing new services. So when you implement new technologies, there is always there are two things to overcome. One is the technical, because we need to acquire the skills to actually deploy that new technology. But that's the easy part. No, we study or we hire somebody that knows how to do that. And so we overcome the skill part. But then we have the implementation part, because we can stay here and talk about this and the other, but then you need to actually implement that. Somebody has to go to the data center, put the router, do the configuration, make all that configuration to serve for all the current services, and on top of that, implement the new services. So remember also that the asset that you have for the network, so your devices, your router, etc., those are not the real asset of the company. The real asset of the company is the customer, the design, and the system. Those are something that you use in order to reach that kind of objective. Let's talk about instead operational costs. So in the typical operational expenditure, OPEX, you have to take in account for personnel. That's typically 40 to 50% of the costs. The bandwidth for transit or peering or etc., that's typically 20 to 30% of the cost. There are facility rental. If you need to rent a facility, or even if you are using your own facility, then you still have to take in account the money that you would actually make if you rent that facility. That you need to take that in account in the business plan as well. Equipment support. If you are going with brand new equipment, the equipment support takes often more than 10% of the costs. And software services. Consider, for this reason, consider managed services for non-core functions, like the NOC. A NOC, it's not a core function. The NOC operator, if you build your business correctly, it doesn't need to be the operator that really designed the network. The NOC operator can be anybody, and you can outsource that if the network is correctly documented. So if you've done your homework well, there are a lot of stuff that you can outsource. It's like when you start little, no? Sometimes you have a small pop, and all of us lived that part, no? And maybe you have the DNS and radius, and they are all in a single pop. Then you grow up, and still DNS and radius and everything is still in that single pop. So then that pop gets destroyed or faulty for some reason, and you're affecting all the other pop. Maybe you have 15 pops. If you had externalized that service at the beginning, like the best practice suggested, then it would have been a cost and at the beginning, but now would have been something that saved you. Customer support or other specialized services in order to optimize the costs. What you have to focus on is competence. So the skills that your team has in order to support operations. Don't need to waste the time in something that can be delegated. And finally, what you need to achieve. Every 9, we calculated that this was actually not only for ISP. It's a little bit different between data center and ISP. But every 9 you add, it's 25% more or less on your business plan. So if you're planning to spend $1 million and you want 99% uptime, then if you want 99.9, it will be 1,250,000 and so on. Builds up 25%. Okay, so any question? Thank you. And I'm trying to, it's Achu?
Yes, it's
okay.
Achu.
Okay.